we'll take some questions. Bob?
John, I'll start you off with a UFO question. How about that?
Go for it.
Has Secretary Austin been briefed on this report that's required by Congress? And also, just more broadly, does Secretary Austin see this, what apparently is an increasing number of reported incidents, as a safety report for the military in terms of pilot training and so forth, as well as a national security threat?
He has received a briefing on the work that the task force has thus far conducted. The report, as you know, is being crafted and will be delivered by the Director of National Intelligence, but he has received a briefing on the work thus far. And as we've said before, we take all incursions into our operating spaces seriously.
In other words, regardless of what the explanation may be, or if there is none of what they are, there are incidents in which pilots are seeing things that are close enough that it could be a safety, or it is a safety problem?
It could potentially involve safety and or national security concerns, absolutely. Jeff?
I was talking to a gentleman about the UAP report, and he contends the Pentagon has alien bodies and crafts. So I just wanted to run this past you. Does DOD have these things, and if so, where?
Jeff, the UAP task force is really designed to take a look at these unexplained aerial phenomena, try to help us get a better understanding of them. Again, I'm not going to get ahead of the report that the DNI will submit, that we are helping, obviously, providing input to, and I think I'll just leave it at that, Jeff. Louis?
So can you rule out specifically that these are not alien spacecraft?
And I'm not going to get ahead of a report that hasn't been filed to Congress, and I'm certainly not going to speak about intelligence issues here from the podium. Again, seen the press reporting, but I'm not going to be able to comment beyond that.
Some former Pentagon officials who had worked on this issue, Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo, have said that this is an effort for the Pentagon to be less transparent on UAPs. And I was just wondering if you had any response to that.
So this is a chance for us to be a much more organized in the way we process these reports. And as we we will certainly continue to be as transparent as we can about these phenomena and the impact that they may or may not be having on our ability to operate.
During today's UAP hearing, a congressman asked whether the Defense Department has the capability to monitor for UAPs underwater. The congressman was told this was a matter for a closed session. So I was hoping to reframe his question. Is DOD looking for UAPs underwater?
I'm not going to even attempt that one, Jeff. If it's a matter for a closed session with Congress, I think you can understand why we wouldn't be talking about that from the podium.
Are there other planets elsewhere that there is life? Now, I know what you've seen is what those Navy pilots saw in 2004, and there have been some 300 sightings since then. And I've talked to those pilots, and they know they saw something, and their radars locked onto it. And then all of a sudden it was here on the surface, and then it's there. And they don't know what it is, and we don't know what it is. We hope it's not an adversary here on Earth that has that kind of technology. But it's something.
UAPs are unexplained, it's true, but they are real. They need to be investigated, and many threats they pose need to be mitigated. The culture has changed. That those who report UAPs will be treated as witnesses, not as kooks. You need to show us, Congress, and the American public whose imaginations you have captured. You are willing to follow the facts where they lead. You know, we fear sometimes that the DOD is focused more on emphasizing what it can explain, not investigating what it can't. I'm looking for you to assure us today that all conclusions are on the table. One final note, we are mindful today that AIMSOG is not starting from scratch. This is the third version of this task force in DOD. The last time Congress had a hearing on UAPs was half a century ago. I hope that it does not take 50 more years for Congress to hold another, because transparency is desperately needed. Gentleman yields back. Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to join this hearing. I really appreciate the witness's testimony. Mr. Moultrie, as the chairman mentioned, DoD had an initiative to study UFOs in the 1960s called Project Blue Book. It's also been well reported in our briefing and in other places that we have more recent projects, specifically ATIP. Could you describe any other initiatives that the DoD or DoD contractors have managed after Project Blue Book ended and prior to ATIP beginning? Did anything also predate Project Blue Book?
So I can't speak to what may have predated Project Blue Book. I mean, of course, there's Roswell and all these other things that people have talked about over the years. I'm familiar with Blue Book. I'm familiar with ATIP. I haven't seen other documented studies that have been done by DoD in that regard.
So you're not aware of anything in between Project Blue Book and ATIP?
I'm not aware of anything that's official that was done in between those two. Okay. Hasn't been brought to my attention.
Okay. Additionally, are you aware of any other DoD or DoD contract programs focused on UAPs from a technological engineering perspective? And by that I mean, are you aware of any technology initiatives focused on this topic other than initiatives focused on the individual case investigations?
I am not aware of any contractual programs that are focused on anything related to this other than what we are doing in the Navy Task Force and what we are about to launch in terms of our effort.
Same question for you, Mr. Bray.
Same answer, not aware of anything outside what we are doing in the UAP Task Force.
So just to confirm, you're not aware of any technology or engineering resources that have been focused on these efforts besides what we've mentioned today?
Once again, I'll say no contractual or programmatic efforts that are involved. And the reason why I qualify it that way, let me qualify it that way. I can't speak to what people may be looking at in the department. Somebody says, I'm looking at something that may be unidentified, and I can't speak to that. I speak to official programs that we have on the record.
It's also been reported that there have been UAP observed and interacting with and flying over sensitive military facilities, particularly, and not just ranges, but some facilities housing our strategic nuclear forces. One such incident allegedly occurred at Malmstrom Air Force Base, in which 10 of our nuclear ICBMs were rendered inoperable. At the same time, a glowing red orb was observed overhead. I'm not commenting on the accuracy of this. I'm simply asking you whether you're aware of it and whether you have any comment on the accuracy of that report.
Let me pass that to Mr. Bray, if you've been looking at UAPs over the last 3 years.
That data is not within the holdings of the UAP Task Force.
Okay, but are you aware of the report, or that the data exists somewhere?
I have heard stories. I have not seen the official data on that.
So you've just seen informal stories, no official assessment that you've done or exists within DoD that you're aware of regarding the Malmstrom incident?
All I can speak to is what's within my cognizance of the UAP Task Force, and we have not looked at that incident.
Well, I would say, it's a pretty high-profile incident. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but that's out there in the ether. You're the guys investigating it. I mean, who else is doing it?
If something was officially brought to our attention, we would look at it. There are many things that are out there in the ether that aren't officially brought to our attention.
So how would it have to be officially brought to your attention? I'm bringing it to your attention.
Sure, so,
this is pretty official.
Sure. So we'll go back and take a look at it, but generally there is some authoritative figure that says there is an incident that occurred. We'd like you to look at this. But in terms of just tracking what may be in the media that says that something occurred at this time, at this place, there are probably a lot of leads that we would have to follow up on. I don't think we are resourced to do that right now.
Well, I don't claim to be an authoritative figure, but for what it's worth, I would like you to look into it. And
sure.
If for no other reason, you could dismiss it and say this is not worth wasting resources on.
Will do.
And then finally, are you aware of a document that appeared around 2019, sometimes called the Admiral Wilson Memo or EW Notes Memo?
I am not.
You're not.
Are you tracking?
I'm not personally aware of that.
Okay. This is a document in which, again, I'm not commenting on the veracity. I was hoping you would help me with that, in which a former head of DIA claims to have had a conversation with the Dr. Eric Wilson and claims to have sort of been made aware of certain contractors or DoD programs that he tried to get fuller access to and was denied access to. So you're not aware of that?
I'm not aware, Congressman.
In my 10 seconds remaining, then, I guess I just would ask, Mr. Chairman, unanimous consent to enter that memo into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
A lot of discussion about the whistleblower protections in the legislation. And, do you see that over the next year or two that it's likely that people will be coming forward with information provided to Congress? And how likely is it that that will ever become public? That's the other big question.
Yeah, we have legislation pending right now that not only has this important whistleblower provision, which I'll talk a bit more about, it requires a review of all historical documents from the intelligence community relating to the UAP issue all the way back to World War II. It requires the Defense Department, the intelligence community, the Department of Homeland Security to review and identify any non-disclosure agreements related to UAP whatsoever, and to submit those to this new office that's being created. It also includes this extraordinary whistleblower provision. So what they're saying is that notwithstanding any secrecy agreement that you've signed pursuant to the existing executive order which governs classification or the Atomic Energy Act, regardless of any of the above, if you have information regarding a classified UAP, U.S. government program or activity, anything having to do with recovered materials or collection or efforts to conceal this or to manipulate public opinion or anything of that kind, this new office is directed to create a secure process by which to receive that information and validate it and report it to Congress. If people have concerns, it's noteworthy that this legislation stipulates that if in the event that there was any kind of retaliation against someone who does come forward, they can sue not only for compensatory damages for any lost salary rating, they can sue for punitive damages. So if there's somebody working at Lockheed Martin on some program and they come out through this process and Lockheed Martin were to try to do something, they could also get a court order to overturn that and to remain in their position until the issue is finally adjudicated. There is also Inspector General protection available to these people, an incredible, unprecedented opportunity to at long last get to the bottom of longstanding allegations, perceptions, rumors about what does the U.S. government really know about this topic. The whistleblower provisions and that information will remain in classified channels, but it will be delivered to multiple committees on the Hill and to the congressional leadership. What they do with the information at that point is up to them. So they have procedures and they have the possibility, if they want to take the information public or to declassify it. They're rarely used procedures, but they could do that. They could decide if this becomes a reality and they get confirmatory information to go to the White House and say, we can't sit on this. You've got to come to grips with this. You've got to tell the public. We won't know until we get to that point. To be where we're at today from where we started is amazing. It's absolutely miraculous that the U.S. Congress is stepping up on a totally bipartisan basis. Both houses of Congress and both parties are behind this legislation. Yeah. That's pretty amazing.
What is motivating the Congress to recognize this? Why do they think it's really important? Is it only because they think this is some kind of threat? Or is it something more than that? These
members, like the rest of us, they're deeply, deeply curious, right? Everybody wants to know. They all, you hear some of the members coming out of the classified briefings saying things like, wow, that's whatever that is. I don't think it's the Chinese or the Russians or and we know it's not us. And so many of them have this larger possibility on their minds, and they're fairly open about it.
Or are you personally aware of cases where UAP have been detected operating in space or underwater by these or other sensor systems?
Okay, so. Yeah. This is where I have to be careful. One, I could say, yes, there are incidents of that kind, absolutely. Incidents continue.
Right, we need one that shows something coming from space.
Yeah, well, this is so interesting
because that's definitive.
You're
right?
really hitting I'm so with you. And when the House Intelligence Committee had their hearing, I contacted some of the staff. I wrote questions, posted them on the web. I sent them some questions. And the number one thing I was hitting was the space issue.
I remember.
Because if we can demonstrate cases on orbit, nobody can say, well, it's helicopters or it's Chinese lanterns or it's swamp gas or something like that.
Right.
And it's the Air Force initially, to get back to this theme of their resistance to discussing this issue openly, they actually were telling the Congress in the first few years of this process and with these reports, well, we don't need to tell you about anything on space because UAP stands for unidentified aerial phenomena. So notwithstanding that they were playing, I'm kid you not, I'm kidding, this is absolutely for real. Congressional staff have showed me some of I've seen some of the correspondence on this, and they were playing that semantic game and hiding behind that to not have to address this issue. It's a really important question. I think it's something that could help bridge the legitimacy of the issue in the minds of the broader public. Because even when we have the U.S. government saying this is real, and even when we have Aegis-class cruisers tracking these things, and we have Navy pilots seeing them in broad daylight as it's being tracked and confirmed on radar, and we get an infrared radar, there's still people saying, oh, it must have been, something else, or one of our secret projects, or something like that. And I think if people could understand that this is happening in that venue as well, that would have a big impact. And I hope they will continue to press for information on that, because I don't think they're getting a full read yet.
We reached a stage where we were accumulating so much data under the OSAP program that it was becoming really obvious that for a whole host of reasons that we needed to go into a special access program investigation. And part of that was to have access to United States government information that had already been gathered.
The very first conversation I ever had about UFOs with Senator Harry Reid was about reverse engineering, these allegations of things that were being taken apart out in the Nevada desert in order to figure out how they worked and to see if we could duplicate that technology. And at the time, I'm sure it sounded preposterous, more preposterous even than now, because it was so far out there. But Senator Reid took an interest in it, and I think that planted the seed. And then years later, as he is getting briefings and having conversations with people like Robert Bigelow and others about what the OSAP guys are doing, those stories keep bouncing back to him, hearing about the possibility that there's alien technology somewhere that's being taken apart by these big aerospace companies to figure out if we can duplicate the technology and gain an advantage in terms of national security capabilities. He was hearing that stuff as well, and of course, Collum and Lakatsky and the people they were working with, people who are deep inside. You keep hearing those things over and over. That was one of the goals of trying to turn it into a special access program is, can we get to see the goodies? They got quite a different reception when they tried to ask about the other special access programs, UFO investigations or reverse engineering, where's the goodies, where's the bodies? These guys really went after it. And they got the door slammed in their face, not because it doesn't exist, but because it does exist somewhere, and they're not allowed to see it.
Is it fair to say that those programs, those SAP programs that OSAP was potentially trying to gain access to further their work and research are what we have been calling recently the UFO legacy programs?
They were certainly part of what we were going after, but that was only one part of the whole picture. The legacy programs, I think it was common knowledge with anybody who was working in this field behind the scenes that these legacy programs existed. For our our particular program, we were focused not only on the hardware, we were looking at delving deeper and deeper into medical aspects of the topic, including all of these rumors regarding quote unquote alien technology, biology of unknown origin.
I can say I'm pretty confident that there is hardware, that there are machines and materials of unknown origin that are in the hands of defense contractors. I'm confident that some of it will come out because there are people, whistleblowers, who are lining up to tell the story. And, I don't know how far Colin wants to go, but there are colleagues of his that know so much more. And not just the generic story of we've got crash saucers stashed somewhere. They know where. They know where this stuff is, at least where it was pretty recently. And I wouldn't be surprised that there has already been testimony before members of Congress about those legacy programs, about the goodies and where they might be stored. I think they probably got an earful already. And then when you have the protections signed into law, there's a lot of folks lining up to tell some stories. I think they're going to be able to find it. I think they're going to be able to at least find some of it. If not for the New York Times story 5 years ago, making it acceptable for other mainstream media to go ahead and dig into this, Congress would not have come out of its closet and embraced this topic as it has. New York Times story made it acceptable for other media to cover it. That gave cover to members of Congress to ask questions, to have closed-door briefings. So it's important for the public to stay engaged, to keep Congress's feet to the fire, because otherwise the military will happily let this drop.
The American people deserve to hear more about special access programs. Congress has a right to know if there's any unsanctioned weapons development, satellite imagery that has not been provided to Congress. We should have disclosure today. We should have disclosure tomorrow. The time has come.
The witnesses will please stand and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that all the witnesses answered in the affirmative.
In 2014, I was an F-18 Foxtrot pilot in the Navy Fighter Attack Squadron 11, the Red Rippers, and I was stationed at NAS Oceana in Virginia Beach. After upgrades were made to our jet's radar systems, we began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace. At first, we assumed they were radar errors, but soon we began to correlate the radar tracks with multiple onboard sensors, including infrared systems, eventually through visual ID. During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, two F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter. The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base. Our squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sightings. Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like look at that thing. It's rotating.
In 2004, I was a commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the world-famous Black Aces. We were attached to Carrier Wing 11, stationed on board the USS Nimitz, and had begun a 2-month workup cycle off the coast of California. We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet in a controller called merge plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. All four of us, because we were an F-18F, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down a small, saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping-pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingmen, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. So as we started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cat point, roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute. You can calculate the speed."
In 2019, the UAP Task Force Director asked me to identify all special access programs and controlled access programs, also known as SAPs and CAPs, we needed to satisfy our congressionally mandated mission, and we were direct report at the time to the DepSecDef. At the time, due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple inspectors general, and in effect becoming a whistleblower. As you know, I've suffered retaliation for my decision, but I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of increased transparency.
On the military aviation side, veterans that have recently got out have shared their stories and have expressed how the objects we were seeing in 2014, 2015 continued all the way to 2019, 2020, and beyond. And so it became a generational issue for naval aviators on the eastern seaboard. This was something we were briefing to new students. This is something that was included in the notice to airmen to ensure that there was no accidents.
Mr. Grush, finally, do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the firsthand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General.
Have you faced any retaliation or reprisals for any of your testimony or anything?
It was very brutal and very unfortunate, some of the tactics they used to hurt me both professionally and personally, to be quite frank. Yeah.
How does a program like that get funded?
I will give you generalities. I can get very specific in a closed session, but misappropriation of funds and
Does that mean
self-fund.
does that mean that there is money in the budget that is said to go to a program, but it doesn't, and it goes to something else?
Yes, I have specific knowledge of that. Yep.
Mr. Grush, are you aware? Do you have direct knowledge, or have you talked to people with direct knowledge that there are satellite imagery of these events?
That was one of my primary tasks at NGA, since we process, exploit, and disseminate that kind of information. But I personally reviewed both what we call overhead collection and from other strategic and tactical platforms that I could not even explain prosaically. And I have a degree in physics.
The concept that an alien species that's technologically advanced enough to travel billions of light years gets here and somehow is incompetent enough to not survive Earth or crashes is something that I find a little bit far-fetched.
You know, I'm here as a fact witness and expert, but I will give you a theoretical framework, at least to work off, to kind of espouse crashes, regardless of your level of sentience, right? You know, planes crash, cars crash, n number of sorties, however high, a small percentage are going to end in mission failure, if you will, as we say in the Air Force.
Did this object come up on radar or interfere with your radar or the USS Princeton?
The Princeton tracked it, the Nimitz tracked it, the E-2 tracked it. We never saw it on our radars. Our fire control radars never picked it up. The other airplane that took the video did get it on a radar. As soon as it tried to lock it, it jammed the radar, spit the lock, and he rapidly switched over to the targeting pod, which you can do in the F-18.
Can you describe how the aircraft maneuvered?
Abruptly, very determinate. It knew exactly what it was doing. It was aware of our presence, and it had acceleration rates. I mean, it went from 0 to matching our speed in no time at all.
We have a problem here that needs further investigation.
Yes.
This flying Tic Tac, I mean, is it capable of being the product of any other nation on the Earth?
No, like I said earlier, I think it defies current material science and the ability to develop that much propulsion. And I know there's been some physicists have done calculations, which is beyond anything that we have.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Are you aware of any individuals that are participating in reverse engineering programs for non-terrestrial craft?
Personally, yes.
Do you know any that would be willing to testify if there were protections for them?
Certainly closed door and assurances that breaking their NDA, they're not going to get administratively punished for so. Yeah.
I want to thank everybody. We made history today.
The United States government has gathered a great deal of information about UAPs over many decades, but has refused to share it with the American people. That is wrong, and additionally, it breeds mistrust. We've also been notified by multiple credible sources that information on UAPs has also been withheld from Congress, which, if true, is a violation of the laws requiring full notification to the legislative branch, especially as it relates to the 4 congressional leaders, the defense committees, and the intelligence committee. So the bill I worked on with Senator Rounds offered a common-sense solution. Let's increase transparency on UAPs by using a model that works, by following what the federal government did 30 years ago with the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. It's beyond disappointing that the House has refused to work with us on all the important elements of the UAP Disclosure Act during the NDAA conference. But nevertheless, we did make important progress. For the first time, the National Archives will gather records from across the federal government on UAPs and have a legal mandate to release those records to the public if appropriate. This is a major, major win for government transparency on UAPs, and it gives us a strong foundation for more action in the future.
Shortcomings of the conference committee agreement that are now being voted on were the rejection, first of all, of a government-wide review board composed of expert citizens, presidentially appointed and Senate confirmed, to control the process of reviewing the records and recommending to the president what records should be released immediately or postponed, and a requirement as a transparency measure for the government to obtain any recovered UAP material or biological remains that may have been provided to private entities in the past and thereby hidden from Congress and the American people. We are lacking oversight opportunities, and we are not fulfilling our responsibilities.
It is really an outrage the House didn't work with us on adopting our proposal for a review board, which, of course, by definition here is bipartisan in the Senate. Now it means that declassification of UAP records will be largely up to the same entities that have blocked, obfuscated their disclosure for decades. We will keep working. I want to assure the American people, Senator Rounds and I will keep working to change the status quo. And before I yield finally to him, I'd like to just acknowledge my dear friend, the late Harry Reid, a mentor who cared about this issue a great deal. So he's looking down and smiling on us, but he's also importuning us to get the rest of this done, which we will do everything we can to make happen.
There is, we believe, information and data that has been collected by more than just the Department of Defense, but by other agencies of the federal government as well. And by allowing for an outside, independent collection of these records, we can make progress in terms of dispelling myths and providing accurate information to the American people.
Again, I thank my colleague and pledge to work with him and other bipartisan colleagues in the future to build upon what we've achieved in the conference report. We encourage our colleagues to join us in the further investigation of this issue and in advancing legislation that will complete what we have accomplished in this NDAA. And I yield the floor.
We'll always want to be as transparent with members of Congress and with the American people as we can, considering national security concerns.
This used to get laughed at for quite some time, for years and decades.
What gets laughed at?
The idea of Congress taking this up. I mean, Gerald Ford talked about this as a congressman back in 1966, and here we are, what is that, 60 years later, give or take. Is this a legitimate issue? Does the administration believe that getting to the bottom of these sightings in the air, is it a real concern? Is it a real legitimate issue as you see it?
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have stood up an organization at the Pentagon to analyze and try to collect and coordinate the way these sightings are reported if we didn't take it seriously. Of course we do. I mean, some of these phenomena we know have already had an impact on our training ranges. For when pilots are out trying to do training in the air and they see these things, they're not sure what they are, and It can have an impact on their ability to perfect their skills. So it already had an impact here, and we just want to better understand it. Now, we're not saying what they are or what they're not. We're saying that there's something our pilots are seeing. We're saying it has had an effect on some of our training operations, and so we want to get to the bottom of it. We want to understand it better. So, yes.
Do you believe these whistleblowers that have come forward?
I'm not going to talk about individual whistleblowers.
David Grush, who sat on a U.S. Air Force panel on UAPs, he says that he was informed of a UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program based on interviewing 40 witnesses over 4 years. Does such a program exist, and do you believe that the American people deserve to know if it does?
I have no information on that to provide for you today, one way or the other.
The department publicly released today the first volume of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office's Historical Record Report, which reviews the record of U.S. government pertaining to unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP. In completing this report, AARO reviewed classified and unclassified archives dating back to 1945, conducted dozens of interviews, and partnered with officials across the DoD and the interagency. To date, AARO has found no verifiable evidence for claims that the U.S. government or private companies have access to or have been reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. AARO has found no evidence that any U.S. government investigation, academic-sponsored research, or official review panel has confirmed that any sighting of a UAP represented extraterrestrial technology.
This is an internal investigation required by Congress. Why will Americans believe that the Pentagon has investigated itself and found that there's no evidence of alien life?
Well, look, the AARO office used a very rigorous analytical scientific approach to investigate all past U.S. government efforts, all claims by interviewees. They were granted access at the highest levels to all information. None of the agencies that they spoke with prevented them from getting any of the information that they needed to do.
Okay, so on the UAP report, the Pentagon concluded that there is no evidence of UAPs being off-world technology, but it also said the government set up programs to reverse engineer such technology. Why did the government plan to study off-world technology if it says it doesn't have any proof?
Yeah, so as you highlight, no verifiable evidence that any UAP sighting represented extraterrestrial activity, that the U.S. government or private industry has ever had access to extraterrestrial technology, or that any information was illegally or inappropriately withheld from Congress, and alleged hidden UAP reverse engineering programs either do not exist or were misidentified authentic national security programs unrelated to extraterrestrial activity or technology exploitation.
Given the news cycle, you could announce anything about aliens or extraterrestrial life and no one would care. So I'm going to take the shot. What do you got on UFOs, aliens, etc.? Go.
The truth is out there, Jeff. And the truth is we have no evidence to indicate extraterrestrial life has visited the planet.
One of the accusations that the department has within storage the remains of aliens or signs of life from elsewhere. Can you settle that once and for all? Do you or don't you have such remains?
Yeah, so I'm not aware of any remains that the department has of any signs of extraterrestrial beings or activity or technology.
Let me go to Jeff Schogel, task and purpose.
Thank you. Have any of the drone sightings been accompanied with sightings of a large rectangular black object, sometimes called a monolith, often accompanied by Also sprach Zarathustra by Richard Strauss?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I would probably have to think back to the words of a very wise prophet, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who said, "These aren't the drones you're looking for." But beyond that, I'll just have to move along. Okay.
This is going to be the original document from the Pentagon about Immaculate Constellation that Michael Schellenberger delivered to Congress today. 12 pages about this unacknowledged special access program that your government says does not exist.
We're met with people not wanting us to have hearings. We're met with people not wanting us to ask you questions. In fact, many of us were told not to ask some of you certain questions on certain topics.
Do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Confirmation that UAPs are real came to me in January of 2015 when I was serving as the commander of the Navy Meteorology and Oceanography Command. At the time, my personnel were participating in a pre-deployment naval exercise off the U.S. East Coast. It included the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group. During this exercise, I received an email on Navy's secure network from the operations officer of U.S. Fleet Forces Command. The email was addressed to all the subordinate commanders, and the subject line read in all capital letters, "Urgent Safety of Flight Issue," with words to the effect, "If any of you know what these are, tell me ASAP. We are having multiple near mid-air collisions, and if we do not resolve this soon, we are going to have to shut down the exercise." Attached to the email is what is now known as the Go Fast video, captured on the forward-looking infrared sensor of one of the Navy F-A-18 aircraft participating in the exercise.
Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow. Look at the fly.
The very next day, that email disappeared from my account and those of the other recipients without explanation. And just this week, I learned from former DoD official Chris Mellon that satellite imagery of UAP from a few years ago still has not been shared with Congress.
Can you describe what was depicted in the satellite imagery? Just a description.
The term that the analysts used, they called it the button. It was a disc-shaped object.
UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies, all to hide the fact that we are not alone in the cosmos. A small cadre within our own government involved in the UAP topic has created a culture of suppression and intimidation that I've personally been victim to, along with many of my former colleagues. This includes unwarranted criminal investigations, harassment, and efforts to destroy one's credibility. Most Americans would be shocked to learn that the Pentagon's very own Public Affairs Office openly employs a professional psychological operations officer as the singular point of contact for any UAP-related inquiries from citizens and the media. This is unacceptable. It is up to the members of this committee and the other lawmakers to prevent additional government funding to those UAP efforts that remain hidden from congressional oversight.
We now have existing and former U.S. government officials. One of those individuals is a current or former U.S. government official acting as a UAP whistleblower. This person has written a report that says the executive branch has been managing UAP NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, quite possibly decades. Furthermore, these individuals have revealed the name of an active and highly secretive DoD unacknowledged special access program, or USAP. The source of that document told me, that the USAP is a strategic intelligence program that is part of the U.S. military family of long-standing, highly sensitive programs dealing with various aspects of the UAP problem. The new UAP whistleblower claims that the U.S. military and IC database includes videos and images taken using infrared, forward-looking infrared, full-motion video, and still photography. Another source came forward who told me that they saw a roughly 13-minute-long, high-definition, full-color video of a white orb UAP coming out of the ocean approximately 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait. It was filmed from a helicopter. Then halfway through the video, the person said the orb is joined by another orb that briefly comes into the frame from the left before rapidly moving again out of the frame. I'll show you this example here. This is a presentation from the UATP task force. This is completely absurd. It's nuts, this level of censorship, of redaction on a document. It shows the redaction of how many reports they've collected, for how many years, 2 of the 3 potential explanations are blacked out. The Pentagon, the intelligence community is treating us like children. It's time for us to know the truth about this. I think that we can handle it.
I signed documentation 3 years ago that restricts my ability to discuss specifically crash retrievals.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
You specifically said the document said you can't talk about crash retrieval. Well, you know, you can't talk about Fight Club if there's no Fight Club.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just making an observation.
Have you specifically had any experience with submersible objects?
One instance that was revealed to me was in the 80s on a nuclear-powered submarine, a ballistic missile submarine, that the object exhibited the characteristics of a Russian torpedo in terms of its speed of movement and closing rate with the submarine, and then it slowed and followed the submarine slowly in its wake for a period of minutes, and then rapidly exited the scene. And nothing that we know of and technology-wise could replicate that.
My predecessor program, OSAP, was trying to collect material of unknown origin.
Was it successfully collected?
It was not. What happened is that there was an aerospace contract company that requested to divest itself of the material that was collected in the 1950s. Unfortunately, that didn't actually occur.
So let's dive into that. That's the Bigelow Airspace, correct? So
yes, sir.
There was a journalist, Christopher Sharp, who said that there was a transfer between Lockheed Martin, Bigelow Airspace, and the CIA allegedly blocked this. Can you describe that?
What I can say is that it was blocked.
Based on your knowledge of UAP sightings, do you believe it's fair to say that they are especially common near nuclear sites?
Mr. Congressman, I absolutely am convinced of that, as are my colleagues inside the government.
Government, executive branch, not sharing with Congress what it knows about UAP infringes on your legislative and oversight responsibilities. This UAP issue may be the greatest issue of our time, and it's being hid from you.
There is something out there. The question is it ours? Is it someone else's? Or is it otherworldly? As the regulatory body, we must know. And anyone who prevents us from gaining access to that information, I would consider that criminality.
If there's no further business without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.